Welcome to this explainer. All right, let's just jump right in. We need to talk about a pretty uncomfortable truth regarding AI coding agents. Look, we all absolutely love the massive productivity boosts they give us, right? But there's a catch. We've got to look at how your local configurations might actually be introducing some extremely serious and honestly very quiet attack surfaces. Today, we're unpacking the recent security reckoning around Claude Code so we can see exactly what's happening under the hood.
For years, we've basically treated configuration files as totally harmless, just these passive, boring lists of settings and preferences. But the thing that makes tools like Claude Code so incredibly powerful, their ability to actually do things on your machine using local configs and integrations, well, that exact same capability is precisely what makes them so vulnerable to silent takeovers. These aren't just your standard settings anymore. They are active execution pads.
So here's our roadmap for today. 1. Your agent as your attack surface. 2. 3 silent attack factors. 3. Why config files are executable. 4. The industry-wide problem. And 5. We'll wrap up with the Agentic security playbook. Let's get into it.
Section 1. Your agent, your attack surface. When we wire our AI agents directly into GitHub, Jira, and internal cloud services just to speed things up, we are essentially painting a massive target on our backs. To really grasp this, we have to talk about Model Context Protocol, or MCP integrations. Think of these as the VIP passes that grant your AI agent deep access and routing authority over both your machine and your infrastructure. And a quick heads up here, while we're using Claude Code as our main case study today because of the recent security disclosures, make no mistake, this vulnerability applies to absolutely any agentic tool that demands this kind of deep access.
Moving on to Section 2. 3 silent attack vectors. Let's break down exactly how cybersecurity researchers actually cracked these systems month by month. Looking at this timeline, it paints a pretty wild picture. In just a handful of months, we saw a rapid-fire succession of vulnerabilities unearthed by top researchers. It kicked off in February 2026, when Checkpoint Research found remote code execution and API flaws. Then, barely 2 months later in April, Mitiga Labs dropped a bombshell, uncovering a method for silent token theft. And by June, bad actors were already using leaked source code to create active social engineering lures. It moved fast.
Now, to be fair, Anthropic moved really fast and did the right thing with those checkpoint discoveries. They quickly patched the remote code execution flaws, specifically CVE 2025-5936 and CVE 2026-21852. But here is the kicker. That Mitiga token heist, it remains unpatched, and that's essentially by design. Add in those source leak lures, which basically rely on tricking the user, and you've got an active, ongoing threat sitting right on your machine. Let's zoom in on that unpatched threat for a second, the Mitiga token heist, because honestly, the severity here is off the charts. Here's how it plays out in the wild. A developer accidentally installs a malicious NPM package. Maybe it's dressed up to look like a perfectly normal, boring utility. But hidden inside is a post-install hook that silently rewrites a very specific local file, your .cloud.json file. It literally rewrites your routing configuration. From that moment on, your agent's authenticated requests are rerouted straight through the attacker's servers, skimming your plain text OAuth tokens right in transit. And you want to know the scariest part? Your security logs won't suspect a thing. They'll just show it as legitimate egress traffic coming from you. It's completely invisible. So you're probably wondering, why on earth is this still unpatched? Well, Anthropic considered this specific token heist out of scope. Their reasoning is that the attack chain requires the user to proactively install a malicious package in the first place. So in their eyes, it's a supply chain issue, not a direct structural flaw in Claude Code. It's a tough pill to swallow, but it means the burden of supply chain security falls 100% on the developer. And because of that, this specific attack chain is still very much active today. Okay, Section 3, config files are executable. The fact that these config files are essentially executable is the core thread tying all these threats together, and it marks a massive shift in the security landscape. We're not just dealing with your traditional adversary-in-the-middle attacks anymore, where someone skims your web session logins. No, we are talking about developer tool adversary-in-the-middle attacks. Think about it. These agents live so much closer to your production code than a web browser ever could. They're sitting there, invisibly siphoning off long-lived tokens for your source control, your ticketing systems, your cloud infrastructure. The potential blast radius here is just fundamentally larger. Which brings us to Section 4, an industry-wide problem.
We really need to step back for a minute, because this is not just a hit piece on Claude Code. This is a true industry-wide problem. Every single agentic developer tool out there that combines local configuration, third-party integrations, and machine authority is inheriting this exact same risk profile. Claude Code is just the one in the headlines right now because it's super popular and researchers happen to look closely at it. But the reality is, the incredible convenience of having an AI agent manage your workflow and the vulnerability that agent being hijacked, they are the exact same surface. Finally, Section 5, the Agentic Security Playbook. Let's talk solutions. If you're running coding agents in your production environment, grab a notepad because here is the first half of your defensive playbook. First up, patch and update immediately. That slams the door shut on those checkpoint vulnerabilities. Second, you absolutely must start monitoring that .claude.json file. Keep an eye out for unexpected new localhost proxies or any weird external endpoints. Third, start treating npm post-install hooks with extreme caution. Honestly, maybe even require standing reviews for them in your dev pipelines. And lastly, always verify what you're cloning. Double-check repository provenance so you don't fall for one of those social engineering lures. Now, this defensive posture is especially critical for dealing with that silent token heist we talked about, and the sequence of operations here is absolutely vital. Let's say you suspect an untrusted package sneaked in. Your first instinct might be to just immediately rotate your OAuth tokens. Do not do that first. Seriously, scratch that. Step 1 must be to clean the host and completely remove the malicious hook from your config. Only after you've done that do you move to step 2 and rotate the tokens. Because if you rotate them first while that malicious hook is still chilling on your machine, it's just going to capture your brand new tokens the very next time the agent refreshes. Wrapping up the playbook, we've got to talk about access control. Enforce the principle of least privilege across all your MCP connectors. Only give them the exact access they absolutely need to function, nothing more. Make it a habit to audit those active permissions regularly. And hey, if you aren't actively using an integration, just disconnect it. Every open connection is basically a credential waiting for someone to steal it. And finally, sandbox those agent sessions. Keep them strictly isolated from your critical production secrets. So we've covered a ton of ground today, right? From the hidden, honestly pretty wild dangers of executable config files to the actionable steps you can take right this minute to lock down your environment. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final question to chew on. Is your coding agent working for you, or is it working for your attacker on a quiet Tuesday? The discipline that makes an agentic build highly resilient is the exact same discipline that makes it safe. Start treating your agent's configuration as production code, because at the end of the day, it literally is. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.